Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, Jimmy Stewart, and this is the other co-host.
Tommy Duncan. Good afternoon, everyone.
And today we're going to talk about black economics. Tommy sent me an article last week from the Chicago Tribune.
Yes, sir.
And with some very alarming information. We all know that there are problems in our community, but we don't know the extent to how bad things really are. So today we're going to talk about that and offer some solutions as to what we can do. So, Tom, let's start with the article. Let's give us the 50,000 foot view, the high level overview of what the article says.
So what got my attention is basically the topic of the article. It did its job. It said that African Americans, black folks, are the only group in America whose income actually went down from the year 2000.
So let's be clear about this. The only, not one of many, we're not part of a group of folks who are losing money. We're the only group who've lost money.
Right.
Earning power. Okay.
Absolutely. 39,000. The median average income, or the median income in the African American household was $39,000 in 2016. This article was late last year. And in 2000, it was 41,000. And this was actually averaged in 2016 dollars, so that takes into effect, of course, the cost of money over the period of time. So in 2016 dollars, we actually lost ground, and we're the only group that's lost ground.
And now we know the Asian median income is about 70,000, 69,000.
Actually, they said 81,000.
Oh, just going up.
Matter of fact, over $81,000.
Okay.
So for the African American community, it was $39,400. For the Asian community, who is the top of the economic ladder, it was over 81,000.
So they're close to doubling our income.
Yes.
That is sad. That is really sad considering how many of them work in nail shops and restaurants, in the kitchens, that the high earners in their group, they still earn enough money to bring their average up. I mean, I thought it was like 70-some thousand or 69,000, but those are numbers I saw years ago, and they just stuck in my head. 81,000, and we're at 39.
We're at 39. The Latino community is a little bit over $47,000, and then the Caucasian community is right at around, I believe, 60,000.
So the average median income for the Hispanic group is $8,000 or $9,000.
Higher, absolutely.
So we really are bottom end. I mean, we really are being left behind. Man, that is astonishing how that can happen in a country that we helped build and help make great, and we're being left out of the economic equation. Just when things start to turn around and get better, we're still the last ones to benefit. And then when things turn bad, we're the first ones affected.
Correct.
Okay. So what are we going to do about this? I mean, we can diagnose the problem. We understand what the issues are now. We can measure the conditions. So what do we do to turn this thing around?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, but I see a couple of things that we've got to change immediately if we're going to change the narrative and the trajectory on this. Number one, Jimmy, is that we have got to stop empowering other communities that don't invest in ours. And number two, we've got to build our own industries and economies. That's first and foremost.
Well, I think number two needs to be number one. Because whether other people invest in us, that's great if they do.
Right.
But even if they don't, we still need number two regardless.
Right.
So controlling your economies of your community is so important for so many reasons. One, we need to create jobs for ourselves. We can't keep begging white people and other people to create jobs for us, and then crying and complaining when they don't. And then pointing to the inequities. Well, you have so many of this people and that group, and there's only 1% of us working there. Well, it's not really their responsibility to go out and hire our people. That's our responsibility. We need to do more about that. And the other thing is, man, we need to be teaching our kids how to be entrepreneurs.
True.
I mean, we need to pass this information down and start teaching at an early age, because there are so many kids who come out of college knowing that when they graduate, they're going to go back to their family business. They're going to go work with their dad, their mom. They're going to go do something, or they already have jobs lined up because the parents have connections, have been able to negotiate and get people to provide jobs for their kids when they come out of school, so they're not as impacted as looking for jobs like the rest of us. So we need to have those same kind of things in place for our kids when they come out of school, knowing that there are some jobs that are waiting for them also.
I'd agree. Now, I mean, consider this, even though the country has changed in terms of the overall creation of jobs from the early 19th century, early 20th century to the early 21st century.
Correct.
But during that period of time, Jimmy, where, we lived in segregated communities, we had control over our economics. Now, granted, we didn't have the same access than the overall white community, because of course they controlled the government, they controlled the access to resources, land, etc. But we still had some control over our economics. Otherwise, we lived in our own communities. We ran the grocery stores, obviously. Sure. We controlled schools. We controlled everything having to do with our community.
Making the clothes, women sold and made clothes for the shops, retail shops, and like you said, it came with the groceries, the restaurants, the banking, all the business services, medical services were local. They were local. So the integration just has not been kind to us in our community, because as soon as the doors open, all the good people left, and all you had left was the hood, and those areas where you had a void of professional people and professional businesses suffered. And we see that today.
I would agree. And I think that the problem with integration within our community is that we were fed the wrong narrative. Where every other community who has, and granted, we didn't immigrate to America, we were dragged to America, our ancestors were. Every other community that has immigrated to America has maintained their culture, they have maintained their economics, and they have maintained a certain vision in terms of where they are going to dominate and build their future in America. We are the only community that does not own its own agenda, in my opinion.
No, we don't.
We don't own our own agenda.
In fact, speaking of agendas, I don't even know what our national agenda is, because it seemed like the black politician seemed to be in it for the black politician. I don't know if there is a national agenda anymore. I mean, what are we fighting for? They tell us to boycott Nike until Nike gives somebody a couple of board seats and make their friends rich, and all of a sudden we're okay with Nike. We're told to boycott Coca-Cola until Coca-Cola gives out a couple of bottling plants to some black folks, and now all of a sudden Coca-Cola is cool. So, I mean, what is our national agenda today?
Well, Jimmy, I hate to say this, but maybe the agenda is protesting.
That can't be, because there's no money involved. There's some money in protesting
for some people.
For some people. There's not enough money in protesting to free us. We're not going to get rich and wealthy from protesting.
And what I'm saying is this. I mean, I say it tongue in cheek, kind of joking, but if you look at it, Jimmy, over the last 50, 75 some odd years, either one is begging for something from the government, and that's not to say that the black community isn't owed something from the government for 300 years of freedom. At the end of the day, if our strategy is either begging for the government, which we've never gotten anything substantive from the government, and or protesting against folks, which folks aren't going to give you the resources to drive economies by protesting, then that would seem to me that has been the agenda. When something happens, when somebody gets shot and killed in the community, when our representation in the local government doesn't reflect the community, when we have a dominant force in the community, then it's protesting, and that seems to have been the agenda.
Yeah, except if we were making progress from protesting, I'd be the first out there to lead the protest. I just don't see it. I mean, you can change minds and hearts from protesting. That doesn't equate to dollars. That doesn't equate to wealth.
True.
So what we need to start doing, rather than protesting, is taking our time and our energy and our resources to do something about it. We have to change this narrative. We have to do the things that other people are doing. And Tom, I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, but I've noticed a distinct difference in body language and attitude. If I, excuse me, if I go somewhere and speak, and it's an all-black crowd, you start talking about coming together, doing things, investing in your community, pulling our money together, supporting our businesses. Everybody's cool. I mean, they're fine with it. You can speak freely. But if it's a mixed crowd, if there's some white people there, it just seems like we become uneasy talking about doing for ourselves and
True.
freeing ourselves. I've even had people come to me and say, whisper in my ear, like, Jimmy, you need to tone it down. You can't talk to. This is the same speech I've given into black circles. Why do I have to tone it down because now the crowd's a little more diverse?
Jimmy, I think that Malcolm X said this a long time ago. Folks who get uneasy are concerned that their benefactors may cut them off. And we probably know who those benefactors are.
Well, see, and I wish maybe the benefactors would cut us off. Maybe we need to be cut off. Maybe fending for ourselves and learning to fend for ourselves, going back to our roots, turning the clock back, is maybe what we need. Maybe we've lived off the crumbs of other people for too long. Maybe we've been on our knees begging for freedom and jobs and for economic opportunity for too long, rather than just taking control, becoming economic warriors, what I call economic Haitian warriors, because of their history. We need to take control and rise up without apology. I'm not apologizing for being pro-black. I'm not apologizing for us wanting to free our community from the bonds that we find ourselves in. This is not even called for in today's age. We should be a little more savvy than what we are. We should be much further along than what we are. And because we're so far behind, we need to catch up. And we're going to apologize for having that desire to just be where everyone else is.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the thing is, Jimmy, if we're going to prosper in this country, we've got to be competitive. But I believe that unfortunately we have given up being competitive for being comfortable. And as a result, to your point, we're afraid to stand up for us. Every other community, every other group will stand up for, and I believe, don't get me wrong, there is a place for protest.
There is a place, yes.
But the reality of it is, if you don't have an agenda, if you don't have a strategy behind that protesting, if at the end of the day you cannot discipline yourself to say, you know what, we give billions of dollars to the food industry, we give billions of dollars to the hair care industry, we give billions of dollars to the collection of taxes, but we are not holding those folks accountable who are collecting those funds to reinvesting in our community for real progress. And we're not just talking about a few crumbs and lifting somebody up, because you're right. What they'll do is they'll take one person, put them in a position of comfort, and let that be your leader, and then they will feed that person your agenda.
That's
well,
right.
That doesn't make a difference in the masses of black folks, because at the end of the day, in another article I just read recently, almost 23% of black folks are at the poverty level or lower. And this is 2016, 2017. That would be an absolute case for turnover within this country if there was any other group.
True.
Any other group that's been here for over 300, 400 some odd years,
Well,
and almost 1 out of every 5 people living in poverty.
Well, other groups do it differently than we do. They use the educational system, the religious system, politicians, all working together on behalf of uplifting. If you look at what the Italians done when they came here, you look at what the Irish done. The Irish were just maybe a notch or two above being a poor slave when they immigrated here. They were not treated that well, but they were able to use religion, education, and politics to uplift themselves. So, now you have the Fighting Irish in Notre Dame, one of the most prestigious universities in the damn world, if not definitely the country. But we have not used, the black politicians have not worked on behalf of black people. The black churches have not worked on behalf of black people. They work on behalf of themselves for the most part. And as a result, in education, our schools are terrible. I mean, we have some of the worst schools, inner city schools.
Now, when you say our schools, what do you mean?
I mean, predominantly black schools.
Okay.
Predominantly black kids going there. We have one of the highest high school dropout rates. We know that almost 50% of young black boys don't even graduate high school. There's a disparity between the number of males and females, black males and females, young men and young women on college campuses. Black women are certainly graduating at much larger rates than the black men. And then when this spills over into the relationship and intimacy division or area, when there are not enough, what I call maybe quality black men defined by black women to go around. They have all these black women who are doing things, and they don't have enough counterparts who are doing exactly or on their level. So either they're gonna have to go find someone that's beneath their level, which a lot of them don't wanna do, or they're gonna have to go without. And so a lot of black women are just resigned to never being married, never having children, never having a family, because we have such a broken system. And then the other piece of that, Tom, is like we were talking before, I'm not a big proponent of us, when I say us, with black people, following white movements. And when they had their sexual revolution, taking off bras, throwing panties, I mean, you know, okay, that was fine for them. When we had our sexual revolution, we ended up with babies we can't take care of. They have the drug revolution, and you know, they can smoke pot and become president. You know, we have our drug revolution, and they just fill the prison with black men. So they have the partnering revolution between men and women, and women partnering with men and equal rights, which I'm okay with equal rights for women, but they still have families. Gloria Steinem could be the head of president of now and still have a family and have a husband while she's telling women that marriage is slavery.
So at the end of the day, the women's lib movement impacted the black community significantly different than it maintained.
All the white movements impact us differently.
Right.
So that's why we need to stop following white people in their social movements. We need to focus on educating our kids, find a way to get the belt out, and I'm a proponent of bringing the belt back. I don't know why we even stopped the belt and switch.
Well, Jimmy, you know why? What? Oprah Winfrey. Time out. Come on, man.
Time out doesn't work for us. I'm sorry. Time out for our young boys does not work for us, because our young boys need more discipline. They need an authoritative figure in their life. They need someone who's going to enforce the law. I don't want the police to be that force in young males' life, because by the time the police get involved in your life, it's too late.
Well, Jimmy, that's something that we've got to, and given the time that we have, that's probably another topic. Because, you know, if you don't have a father figure in your life, in your household on a day-to-day basis, raising your young boys, and your young girls for that matter, then you know what? The police are going to deal with that much later in life. And unfortunately, that is where we are, and that is where we have been. I mean, think about this. 40% of our jails are filled with black men.
That's sad.
We're talking about 2.4 million people, the highest incarceration rate in the world. And that's including China with over 1 billion people, India with over 1 billion people, any other country over, Russia. We have the highest incarceration rate in the world, and the largest segment is black men. Free labor, bottom line.
Free labor, yes.
Free labor.
So it seems, Tom, that this whole system, we may have ended the mechanics of, not even the mechanics of, we've ended the physical bonds of slavery. We've kept a lot of the principles in place to enslave people if you make certain mistakes, or if you go down a certain path, or you're trapped in a certain geographic area and don't know how to get out. We have to put an end to this, and the only way we're going to put an end to it is what you started off with. Control the economies of your community.
Yeah, I think that's key. And I said 2 parts of it because, I mean, I think you and I have talked about this several times. 99% of our dollars goes out of our community. It does not rotate once.
It doesn't come back at all. It just goes straight out.
99% of our dollars go out of our community. So I'm not expecting us to switch that overnight, in a month, or even in a year, or even 5 years for that matter. But if 99% of our money goes outside of our community, it needs to be directed intelligently, and we should hold not only our political leaders or our leaders in our community accountable, but the folks that we spend our money with. And if we don't have the discipline to direct our dollars intelligently, then what are we really talking about, and why are people complaining?
Well, then another piece, Tom, is like you just said, the discipline to do the right thing. We've all encountered black businesses that have poor customer service, and I wish it wasn't that way.
And it's not just black businesses, but some of ours as well.
But some of ours as well. And we tend to be harsher on our own businesses than others.
I would agree.
But I will say this.
Now, when you say harsher, what do you mean?
I mean, sometimes you have a bad experience and you don't go back.
Period. Now, I've heard so many people say, you know what, I ain't doing business with black folk again. I have never heard any other ethnic group say that.
True.
Not going.
I'm even guilty of it myself. I mean, years ago, I had a bad experience with a little black-owned restaurant here in Dallas, and they have multiple branches, but that branch I never went back to. I said, when I walked out of there, they said, I'm never coming back. I meant it, and I never went back. I mean, I patronized two of the other restaurants, but not that one. Which, that was probably wrong on my part. I mean, so we all tend to do it, but the other piece of that is our businesses, Tom, we owe each other respect.
I agree.
We owe each other courtesy, and when you're a business, we are not obligated to spend our money there. So when we come and spend our money there, you need to understand the relationship that you need to be very appreciative and humble yourself to saying, thank you, I appreciate your business. Little things like that, and if there's a problem, please fix it. Don't just take the attitude that, hell, I can just do what I want to do, and what choice do you have? If you don't like it, just don't come back. That can't be the attitude for the small business, and especially for the black community business that's trying to grow. And then the other piece of that, we do have an obligation. If your business is making money, please, by all means, grow and expand. Open other locations. Don't just sit there fat happy with the money you're making, stuff in your pocket, and don't give any of it back.
I would agree. And, I travel quite a bit. I know you've traveled quite a bit. And I was thinking as I was traveling this past week, and this is a question I'd even like to ask the audience. Jimmy, I couldn't think of not one chain that is owned and operated by folks within our community. Not one. Not fuel, not food, not retail clothing. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, of all the things that we have been absolutely brilliant at and can dominate, I cannot think of one chain, national chain. Now, there are some that are within the state. There are some chains that may be expanded regionally, but I cannot think of one national chain that we have that is owned and operated by black folks within our community. And, I mean, it's stunning, but I could, now, if someone correct me, if there is one that has a national presence, let me know, but I cannot think of one.
I can't think of one either, but yeah, as they say in Bonton, nail one. They nail one, Tom.
Right.
Maybe Famous Andy Cookies, but I think he sold that.
Yes, he did. You know what? That's a good point. And so the question is this, let's start the narrative on what we need to do. Obviously, you have to have an agenda, but you also have to have a financial network, whether that's a traditional banking system, but you have a financial network. I am aware that most of our businesses suffer and cannot expand because of a lack of access to capital.
Right.
And we can't expect folks who have put you in a position where you're starting from behind to help you get ahead. And so that means that, maybe Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, they're not going to help our community collectively get ahead and close the gap. But we have to have a financial network to help grow and expand our infrastructure.
It's funny that you mentioned those banks, and I promise you, each and every one of them probably has some kind of international fund where they do micro loans of $100 or $1,000 to, some peasant in India who's trying to, sew beads together, to earn a living. It just needs a little money to buy some machines and some inventory. Do all of our loans have to be very large? Can now we benefit from some micro loans also? Can some of our people who may work from home, who may need a computer or maybe a sewing machine, or something that will allow you to produce something using a few dollars, not like massive dollars? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you start small. I mean, because we have a very small community of businesses, to start with. But I think the key is, you start growing, you expand. I think more importantly, you have to be very careful when you start looking at debt. Because at the end of the day, when you're in debt, you're beholden to the debtor. You're almost in prison because they can call you at any point in time. Exactly. So, let's kind of talk about this because we have a couple of minutes that we need to go ahead and wrap up. First, we talked about we have to have a national agenda, not a political agenda, not a religious agenda, but we have to have a collective agenda. There are, regardless of whether you are Republican, Democrat, Independent, or something different, regardless of whether you are Catholic, Baptist, Buddhist, or non-religious, there are things that affect us across the board that we benefit from. At the end of the day, we don't control the large majority of the job creation within our community. We don't employ each other. That is, probably the number one issue. Two, we have no economies and no industries that we control. When we start talking about the article and the fact that we are at the bottom of the economic totem pole, we have the worst divorce rates in the
Yes, we
country
do.
as well. And if you look at the number of women and men, for that matter, who will not be married, even though they may have children, that affects the economics. So,
Oh, it does. That's true.
and so when you start talking about what do we do to close the gap? Well, we need to promote and advance our families, and a part of that obviously is marriage. Number two, we have to have a national agenda in terms of building our own economies and building our own institutions. And, then, start with those 2 or 3 things.
Those two are fine. I mean, actually, those three, education, family,
Absolutely.
and business. Those three could be the pillars of our foundation that we build on, and then maybe add to it as we start becoming more successful.
But if we can just start with those few things.
Those three would be very, very key. And I think, maybe in the next segment time, we're going to continue our conversation, talk about some viable solutions. Let's talk more about what we can do for ourselves and see what viable options we have within the family structure, educationally for our kids, and then business-wise.
Right. Let's not boil the ocean. Let's start with a couple of things that everyone can agree on that affects us all.
A few simple things that we can all agree on, and like you said, and come together. But family is very important, because you can make a family work, we can make a business venture work.
Right, because at the end of the day, our community is composed of our families.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and close out?
Okay. Well, we want to give a big thanks to a couple of our sponsors, MOTC Telecom, for helping us out with some equipment, and For Us Films that does our processing. And even some of our past sponsors like, Fitness 360.
Absolutely. We want to thank Fitness 360 for supporting us throughout this process, and I want to, of course, advocate for that as well. And then, of course,
And then we have a new sponsor coming on, Freedom Journal.
okay.
So they're an online black newspaper. So they're going to start giving us some support and giving us some space in their journal. So,
And we need to talk about mass media and the impact that it has on our community and our economics as well, because that's a big one as well. That's another segment we're going to have to do.
well, then Tom, we have to stop talking about it and just find some people. Let's just say this real quick. If you're interested in business and you're not sure where to turn, what to do next, please reach out to us. Write to us. Leave us a comment with some way to reach you. We'll get in contact with you, and we promise that we can consult with you, give you some ideas, and help you laser in and focus in on what the next step should be for you to take a step towards independence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, hey, we want to thank you for listening in today. We want to, of course, thank our viewers. We welcome your comments. Bring in as many as we can, and hey.
And please subscribe.
Absolutely.
Hit the subscribe button and join, so when new videos come out, you'll get an alert letting you know that they're here, so you don't miss anything. So you certainly don't want to miss our conversation from the two most insightful men on the internet. So
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
We want to thank you for your time today, and we will definitely see you soon. Thank you.
All right,
very much.
thank you.